They told me not to come to my sister's wedding because I would ruin the atmosphere. 3 months later, I said I do to my man and turned our wedding into an outdoor science event, live streamed for the world to see. When my mother tried to grab the microphone to reclaim the spotlight, millions saw the truth and my epic plot twist. I finally understood. A lifetime of silence was repaid with a globally resonant wedding. My name is Lena Hartwell. I am 30 years old. I am a climate data scientist at the Blue Current Institute in Providence, Rhode Island. My entire life revolves around finding patterns in chaos. I stare at atmospheric carbon levels, ocean acidification rates, and glacial melt speeds. I am paid to see the hard, uncomfortable truth and report it, whether people like the data or not. My work is methodical, exacting, and rooted in provable fact. It is everything my family is not. The text message arrived on a Tuesday, while I was mapping thermal anomalies in the North Atlantic, a typical New England autumn afternoon, which meant the sky outside my fourth-floor lab window was the color of wet concrete, the rain hitting the glass in angry diagonal sheets. My phone buzzed on the desk, a discordant sound against the quiet hum of the servers. It was my mother, Marla. My stomach instantly tightened. That old, familiar reflex, the bracing for impact. I swiped the screen open. The message was short. Lena, don't come to Vivian's wedding. You make the atmosphere too heavy. I read it once. My hand, the one holding the phone, began to shake. Not a polite tremor, but a genuine, bone-deep shake that blurred the words. I set the phone down, my gaze drifting back to the storm outside. The wind rattled the window frame. I picked the phone back up. I read the message a second time. Heavy. The word hung there, blue and digital and absolute. I closed the app. I reopened it. A third time. The words remained unchanged. I was heavy. My work was heavy. My thoughts were heavy. My very presence, my existence in a room, was an anchor on their bright, airy, perfectly curated lives. My breath caught in my throat. A sharp, painful intake. It wasn't just the text. It was what came next. My phone buzzed again. A different notification. This time, it was from my cousin, B, who always seemed to be apologizing for the rest of the family. The message was a screenshot of the Hartwell Family Happenings group chat, a picture of Vivian trying on a veil, beaming. B's text, sent just above the image, read, "Did you see the new dress options Mom sent?" A second later, a string of new texts from Bay, frantic. "Oh God, Lena, I'm so sorry. I forgot they did that. Did they tell you?" I scrolled through my own text feed, the group chat, the one that had existed for 5 years, the one where every detail of Vivian's engagement party, bachelorette weekend, and bridal shower had been discussed, was gone. It wasn't muted. It was deleted. They had removed me, like excising a tumor, or more accurately in their minds, like photoshopping a shadow out of a perfect picture. The blood rushed to my face, hot and stinging. My first instinct was pure, distilled acid. I wanted to type back a list of every hypocritical, superficial, image-obsessed thing my mother had ever said. I wanted to send her a link to my latest publication on coastal erosion models. I wanted to ask, will my absence make the wedding pictures look better? Will the lighting be improved if the heavy daughter isn't there, reminding you that the world is more than just floral arrangements and seating charts? But the impulse collapsed as quickly as it came, smothered by the thick, heavy blanket of habit, decades of swallowing the retort, decades of being the sensible one, the quiet background against which my sister, Vivian, could sparkle. She was the PR executive, the social butterfly, the one who always knew the right thing to say, the right person to flatter. I was the scientist, the book, the brain, the burden. The lab door hissed open, pulling me from the toxic spin cycle in my head. Eamon Ruiz, 32 years old, an ocean engineer with Blue Current, and the only person on the planet who had ever looked at my heavy mind and called it brilliant. He was holding 2 steaming cups of coffee, the cheap, burnt kind from the basement cafeteria that we both pretended to like. He saw my face before I had a chance to arrange it into something neutral. His smile, usually so easy, faltered. He set the cups down on a stack of journals. "Lena, what's wrong?" I couldn't form words. My throat felt like it was full of wet sand. I just unlocked the phone and handed it to him. I watched his face as he read Marla's text. He is a man of the sea. He doesn't rattle easily. But I saw the muscles in his jaw bunch. I saw his dark eyes scan the words, then read them again, slower, as if processing a faulty data string. He looked up at my phone, then at me. He gently took the phone from my hand, his thumb scrolling up, no doubt seeing the screenshot from B, seeing the proof of my digital excision. He let out a slow, controlled breath. "So," he said, his voice quiet, but with a rough edge I rarely heard. "That's it, the last straw." And it was, the dam of 30 years, built of polite smiles and swallowed words and quiet retreats to my bedroom, didn't just crack, it vaporized. "It's always been this way," I whispered, the words finally tearing free, tasting like rust and salt. "It's not just the wedding, it's everything." I started pacing, the motion frantic, my hands gesturing as I finally gave voice to the data set of my own life. "Do you remember when I was 16? I won the state science fair, the Young Climate Innovator Award. It was a $500 prize and a scholarship nomination. I was in the high school gymnasium, holding this giant cardboard check, and I called home. No one answered. I took the city bus home, in the rain, holding this ridiculous check and a cheap plaque. The house was empty. Eamon just listened, his expression hardening. They were at Vivian's regional theater tryouts. She was auditioning for the chorus of Oklahoma, not the lead, the chorus. They missed my award ceremony for that. When I finally found them at the theater, my mother looked at my plaque and said, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Now quiet. Vivian's group is next." My college graduation, I continued, the words coming faster now. "Summa cum laude. I had 2 tickets. They told me the drive was too long and that graduations were boring. They were busy. Do you know what they were busy doing? Helping Vivian set up the perfect 21st birthday party, not her birthday, the party planning, setting up decorations. A week before my graduation, they sent a check. And every single time I publish, every time Blue Current gets a grant based on my models, I call them, and it's always the same. 'Oh, that's wonderful, Lena. Very smart.' And then, not even a pause for breath. 'Did you hear Vivian got a corner office? Her PR firm just landed the new luxury car account. We're just so proud. Her life is so exciting.' I stopped pacing and slammed my hand on my desk, rattling the coffee cups. My work is about the survival of our coastlines. Her work is about selling status symbols to insecure men. Why is her work exciting and mine is heavy?" I sank into my chair, the energy gone, leaving only the cold ache. "Am I real to them?" I asked Eamon, the question sounding unhinged even to me. "Or am I just set dressing? The smart daughter they can point to if someone asks about academics. But who needs to be hidden away when company comes? Am I just a problematic data point in their perfect family graph? Someone who doesn't match the new upholstery?" I looked at him, my eyes burning. I am a climate scientist. I live in a world of hard, measurable facts. But in my own family, I don't even exist. I am an inconvenience. Eamon was quiet for a long time. He walked over, knelt in front of my chair, and took both of my shaking hands in his. His palms were calloused from winches and rigging, steady and warm. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't offer platitudes. He just looked right at me, his gaze as steady and deep as the currents he mapped. "Lena," he said, his voice firm, "you are not the problem. The problem is the mirror they force you to look into. It's warped. It's a funhouse mirror. It only reflects them and their own insecurities. It's designed to make you look small so they can feel big. You are not heavy. You are solid. and they are terrified of anything that isn't hollow. I stared at him, the tears finally coming, hot and silent. He was right. They weren't just excluding me, they were protecting their own fragile reality from mine. I looked back at my phone, still dark on the desk. The cursor still blinked in the reply box in my mind. Marla, my mother. I took a deep, shuddering breath, smelling the cold rain and the burnt coffee. I picked up the phone. Eamon watched me. I pressed the power button and locked the screen. I would not reply. I would not beg for my place. I would not defend my own worth. This time, my silence wasn't submission. It was a verdict. It was a declaration of war. As if summoned by the thought, the screen lit up again. A new text. This time, it was from Vivian. The sugarcoating made it 1,000 times worse. "Hey, sis, Mom told me you might not be able to make it. Totally understand. Things are so hectic. It's probably better this way, you know? We just want a perfect, fun day. No heavy stuff. Talk soon. XO." No heavy stuff. My entire life's work, my personality, my mind, my existence, all heavy stuff. A cold, clear calm settled over me, displacing the chaotic grief. The shaking stopped. I turned to my desk, pushing aside the atmospheric charts. I pulled out a fresh legal pad, the kind I use for drafting grant proposals. I clicked my pen. Eamon watched me, a small, curious smile touching his lips. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked up at him. The tears dried, replaced by something he had never seen in me before, a glint of steel. "I'm done begging for a seat at their table," I said, my voice perfectly level. "I'm going to build my own stage." That blank yellow legal pad was my new shoreline. Building a stage required a blueprint, and to draw a blueprint, you must first survey the land. I am a scientist. My job is to find the signal in the noise. For 30 years, my family life had been a chaotic static of conflicting demands, unspoken rules, and emotional white noise. Now, sitting in the gray lab light with the rain lashing the window, I would finally find the signal. I picked up the pen. "Eamon," I said, my voice quiet, but the tremor gone, replaced by a cold, analytical monotone. "I've been running the data wrong. I've been trying to solve the equation of their approval." I started writing. The data points are all there. That state science fair when I was 16. I called it a missed event. That's inaccurate. It was a prioritization conflict. My event was a solitary academic achievement. Their event, Vivian's chorus performance, was a high-visibility social fundraiser at the golf club. My win was abstract. Her presence was aesthetic. Their choice was logical, based on their core values. Eamon pulled up a stool, his expression serious. He recognized this mode. This was me modeling a problem. "Second data point," I continued, the pen scratching the paper. "My college graduation, summa cum laude. They forgot because they were busy setting up Vivian's 21st birthday party. Again, my achievement was a piece of paper, a handshake. Hers was an event. It's a pattern. Every time I published a paper on Arctic ice melt, the response was a distracted, "Oh, that's nice, Lena," and then an immediate pivot. "Did you hear Vivian's firm landed the new luxury car account? They are flying her to Miami." My work is data. Her work is a press release. My work is a warning. Her work is an invitation. I underlined a sentence. Hypothesis. The Hartwell family values system is not based on achievement, effort, or intellectual labor. It is based exclusively on correct image, presentation over substance. It was suddenly, painfully clear. They were curators. My mother, Marla, was the chief curator of the family museum. My father, Dale, was the silent, passive funder, and Vivian was the permanent star exhibit. My role was the inconvenient, dusty archive in the basement. I was the footnotes. "They worship the visual," I murmured, "the pieces locking into place. It's about the patent leather shoes. It's about holding the wine glass by the stem, not the bowl. It's about the perfectly angled photo at the charity gala. making sure the right names are visible in the background. My work, my mind. It's not visually appealing. It's heavy. It's spreadsheets and climate models and uncomfortable truths about coastal erosion. I don't fit the aesthetic. I am a flaw in the composition. I thought of my cousin B, the only other person in the family who seemed to exist in reality. How many times had I seen her wince at Christmas dinner when Marla would interrupt my story about a research breakthrough to ask Vivian about her new handbag? How many times had B tried to physically pull me into a group photo, only to have my mother wave her hand and say, "One second, B, let's just get one of the main family first." And then, of course, they would forget to call me back in. B was the silent, horrified witness. She saw me being systematically cropped out of my own life. The pen stopped, the biggest data point of all, the one I had buried so deep I had almost forgotten it myself, surfaced. "Amen," I said, my voice dropping. "God, I've been censoring myself for them for years." He waited, his patience a solid, steady thing. 4 years ago, right before I took the job at Blue Current, I was offered a full ride, a doctoral position at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, climate modeling. It was the one, the dream. Eamon's brows knit together. "Lena, you never told me that." "I know. I turned it down." "Why?" he asked, his voice gentle, already suspecting the answer. "The stipend? The location? The research?" "No." The admission felt like swallowing glass. "I turned it down because I played the scene in my head. I imagined getting the acceptance email. I imagined calling home, my hand shaking, telling them I was moving to Europe to work with Nobel laureates. And I knew. Amen. I knew exactly what Marla's voice would sound like. A strained, thin pause, followed by, "Oh, Germany? That's far, dear. Isn't it terribly cold? Well, that's nice. Now listen, you won't believe what Vivian's new boss did for her." I let out a breath that was half a sob, half a laugh. I realized I would be on the other side of the planet, achieving the single greatest thing I had ever worked for, and I would be completely, totally alone. No one would celebrate with me. So I stayed. I convinced myself that Blue Current was a better practical choice, that it was closer to home, but I stayed because I was still a child, begging them to look at my drawing. I thought if I just stayed nearby, if I just kept publishing, eventually they would have to see me. I looked at the black, silent screen of my phone. And now this, Vivian's wedding, the ultimate aesthetic event, the Met Gala of their social climbing lives, and I, the heavy data point, the walking contradiction to their shiny, hollow world, was not just overlooked, I was formally, officially, excluded. "That's the loop," I said, the words hitting the air with a flat, final thud. The harder I try to earn my place, the more invisible I become, the more I achieve, the heavier I get. The lab was silent. The only sound the rhythmic patter of the rain and the low hum of the servers processing global temperature data. Eamon didn't speak. He didn't offer comfort. He just reached into the pocket of his worn, wax cotton jacket. He pulled out a small, simple, dark blue velvet box. It wasn't a surprise. He had pulled that same box out a month ago, in the tiny kitchen of our apartment. We were making pasta, arguing over garlic quantities, and he had suddenly gone quiet. He'd opened it and asked me to marry him. The ring inside was not a diamond. It was a smooth, teardrop-shaped piece of sea glass, the color of the deep water currents, bezel set in a plain, thin band of recycled silver. We had found it on our first weekend trip to Narragansett, on a cold, bright November morning. When he had asked me then, I had frozen. I loved this man. I loved him more than I had ever known I could love anything. But the thought of a wedding, the thought of the production, had sent a spike of pure dread through me. I had touched the ring. "Eamon, it's beautiful. Yes, I want to, but can we just wait? Just for a little while? Maybe later?" Later was a coward's word. Later? meant waiting until I had the psychological armor to deal with my family. Later meant waiting until I could figure out how to navigate Marla's inevitable demands for a ballroom and Vivian's absolute requirement to be the center of attention. Later meant waiting until I had the energy to fight for a wedding that was about us, and not about them. Now, in the sterile light of the lab, Eamon opened the box again. He held it out. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me. The sea glass glowed. It was not a correct image. It was real. It was forged by the ocean, by time, by pressure, by the abrasive force of the sand. It was solid. It was heavy. This was the new data point, the one that changed the entire equation. I looked at the ring. I looked at his steady, patient hand. I looked at the black phone. A single, slow, definitive nod. Yes. Eamon's face broke into a smile so bright it felt like the sun had just risen inside the lab. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. It felt like an anchor, in the best possible way. Solid, true. Okay, I said, and my voice was different. The cold analysis was gone, replaced by a warm, rising current of energy. I picked up the pen again, and this time, my hand was flying. We are getting married, the Lena and Eamon way, he said, pulling his stool closer, all in. 100%. This will not be a wedding that is true to them, I said, underlining the words. This will be a wedding that is true to us. It's not about image, it's about substance. It's not about presentation, it's about a declaration. I drew a box on the page. The goal, an outdoor ceremony, on the coast, not a country club, not a sterile ballroom with ugly chandeliers. Narragansett, Eamon supplied instantly, his eyes bright. Gull's Lantern Point, where we found the glass. Perfect, right on the cliffs, at sunset. We'll time it with the high tide, a copper-red sunset, if the atmospheric particulate cooperates. Guests? He asked. I smiled. Our community, our real one, our colleagues from Blue Current, the oceanography grad students we mentor, the volunteers from the Coastal Cleanup Project, our friends, everyone, I said, tapping the pen. Who understands that heavy is a compliment? Eamon was grinning now, seeing the model take shape. And the Hartwell family? I paused. The old impulse rose up. The lifetime of conditioning. Placate, compromise, send an olive branch, manage their feelings. I looked at the ring on my finger. I looked at the phone. No, the word was clean. Final. They are not invited. I circled the word twice. But here's the strategic component. Eamon, we are not hiding it. I am done hiding. I am done making myself small to fit their correct image. I looked up at him, the entire plan clicking into place, a beautiful, complex, and perfectly balanced system. We will plan this. We will build it. We will make it about our work, our love, and our community, and we will let them find out the same way they find out about Vivian's PR wins. We will let them hear about it, on the airwaves. Eamon caught my gaze, his smile turning sharp and brilliant. A plot twist. A paradigm shift, I corrected, a matching smile on my own face. They think my world is small and boring and heavy. I am about to show them, and anyone else who is watching, just how big my world really is. Our apartment living room became a command center. Vivian's wedding planner was probably juggling florists and calligraphers. We were juggling title charts, municipal permits, and signal-to-noise ratios. The theme was obvious. It was the only theme it could ever be. Love and the ocean. This would not be a performance of a wedding. This would be a demonstration of our lives. It would be a ceremony. Yes, but it would also be a mini-conference on marine conservation. The first line item on our legal pad was location. We didn't need a country club. We had Gull's Lantern Point. It's a rugged, raw fist of granite sticking out into the Atlantic, here in Rhode Island. It's where Eamon and I had our third date, measuring tidal spray. And it's where we found the sea glass for my ring. It was ours. Getting the event permit was a masterclass in bureaucratic navigation. "Yes, ma'am." I'd said into the phone to the state park's clerk. "It is a wedding. Yes, we are aware of the nesting seabird regulations. No, we will not have amplified music. We will, however, have several brief, amplified academic talks. Is there a different form for that?" A confused silence, then the stamp of approval. Next, the aesthetics. My family's world was built on imported, expensive, and fragile things. Our world would be built on what was real, local, and strong. The ceremony would be minimalist to the point of being elemental. We found a local artisan who made simple, beautiful chairs from recycled deckwood. Eamon designed the arch himself. 2 thick poles of reclaimed bamboo, anchored deep in the rock fissures, with a crossbeam draped in native sea oats, not a single hothouse flower, no roses, no lilies. "Our floral budget," Eamon had joked, "is dedicated entirely to grasses that can withstand a 20-knot wind." The menu was equally grounded. We contracted a local fishing co-op, the one Eamon worked with for his sustainable gear initiative. The menu would be hyper-local, sustainably line-caught striped bass, oysters farmed not 2 miles from the point, and wild-harvested kelp salads. Vivian's reception would have towers of champagne. We had a station serving hot spirulina tea. Because the late autumn air would be sharp, our wedding cake? A 3-tiered marvel from a local baker, flavored with sea salt and lemon. It tasted like a clean, bright wave. The role of officiant, or master of ceremonies as we were calling it, needed someone who understood us. We chose Dr. Alistair Finch, a retired oceanography professor from my university. Dr. Finch was the man who, 10 years prior, had given me my first B on a major paper. He'd written in the margin, "Hartwell, your data is sound, but your conclusions are sentimental. The ocean does not care about your feelings. Stick to the facts." He was, in other words, the perfect person to preside over a union built on reality. The invitations were where the true pivot began. We set the date for 3 months after Vivian's. Our guest list wasn't built on family obligation or social reciprocity. It was built on community. We didn't send paper invitations embossed with gold leaf. We sent secure digital links. They went out to our colleagues at the Blue Current Institute, to the grad students we mentored, to the grizzled, sun-weathered volunteers from the Narragansett Bay cleanup, and to a list of independent climate scientists whose work we admired. My favorite part? We sent 50 invitations to the top-performing STEM students from the 3 surrounding public high schools. We wanted witnesses who were building the future, not just people obsessed with curating the past. A week after the invites went out, I got the first plot twist. The call came from a number I hadn't seen in years, but which I knew by heart. Professor Mara Liddell, my graduate mentor, a woman who had, metaphorically, filleted me for my sloppy data presentation and then rebuilt me as a scientist. She was a legend, a veteran of Antarctic ice core drilling and congressional hearings. "Hartwell," her voice boomed, crackling over the line. No preamble. "Professor Liddell, it's so good to hear from you." Cut the pleasantries. "Lena, I got your invitation." Love in the ocean, a bit poetic for my taste, but the framework is sound. "Heard you finally stopped trying to fit into that family's tiny, stupid box." I was stunned. Yes, I suppose I have." "Good. It was distracting you from your work. Now, listen, I'm clearing my schedule. I'll be there, and I'm handling the special guest list. Don't you worry about it. Just send me the logistics packet. I've got a few people who need to see this. You just focus on the title charts and try not to look sentimental." The line clicked dead before I could even say thank you. "The special guest list?" I said to Eamon, who was already grinning. My contribution was the framework. Eamon's was the engineering. He spent a solid weekend coding the Hartwell-Ruiz datum, our event portal. It was clean, elegant, and rigorously simple. It had our story, a brief mission statement, links to our published research, and a simple, clear registration button. "This isn't just an invite," he said, tapping the screen. It's an open-door registration. Anyone in the world who loves the ocean can sign up to watch the live stream. He was passionate about it. Science should be open access. Lena, so should this. He posted the link on a few academic forums and shared interest groups. The response was slow at first, then steady. A few dozen registrations, then a few hundred. Then came the second twist. Eamon got an email, then a call, from a director at Tideglass, a major nonprofit that specialized in remote data transmission for deep-sea research. "Mr. Ruiz," the woman said, "we've been tracking your work on tidal turbine efficiency. We saw your event portal. We love the open access model. Frankly, we think it's brilliant. We have a 5G offshore broadcast buoy that's currently dry docked for maintenance. We'd like to deploy it for your event. Full high definition, enterprise-grade streaming, no charge. Consider it a donation to the cause. We want to see this happen." Suddenly, our little cliffside wedding with a webcam had the broadcast capacity of a major news event. That night, a text from B. "Lena, I heard from a friend of a friend at Blue Current that you're building a new stage. I want in. I will be your bridesmaid. But my only condition is I wear my tactical boots. No fussy dresses, no heels, and I'm not wearing beige." I laughed, texting back, "Deal. Black boots are mandatory." Her reply was instant. "Good. Also, I'll be posted at the head of the access path. Consider me your head of soft security. If they decide to show up, they won't get past me unless you give the explicit nod. This is your day, your data, your terms." Eamon and I wrote our final commitment on that same legal pad. Right below the vendor list, an ethical protocol. Rule 1. No content created solely to harm or shock. Rule 2. No personal attacks, only a statement of facts. Rule 3. This is not an act of revenge. This is an act of realignment. It is about truth, love, and our work. Finally, we planned for the one variable my mother always ignored: reality. My family lived in a world of perfect days, where inconvenience was a personal failure. We were scientists. We lived in a world of variables and contingencies. "Weather is the biggest X factor," Eamon said, pulling up the long-range forecast. "Mid-November on the coast? It could be 50 degrees and sunny, or it could be 30 degrees with a nor'easter." "So we planned for the nor'easter," I said. "We sourced a transparent, geodesic dome tent, the kind used for Arctic base camps, fully rated for gale force winds. It was beautiful. Like a giant, clear bubble, we rented a half-dozen high-powered, low-noise warm air heaters, and every single microphone, from Dr. Finch's lapel mic to the Q&A mics for the mini-talks, was fitted with a broadcast-grade, Dead Cat windjammer. We had backup generators. We had redundant data links. We had planned for every possible failure of equipment and weather. The only variable I hadn't fully modeled, the only chaotic element I couldn't predict, was my family. The shift happened 2 weeks before the wedding date. It started not with a bang, but with a question mark. A tech and science blogger on StreamSphere, a video platform known for its deep-dive documentaries, posted a teaser. It was just a short, text-based clip against a looping video of waves crashing at Gull's Lantern Point. It read, "A wedding ceremony plus an oceanography lab equals. We're watching this link. You should too." The post was meant for a niche audience of a few thousand, but it was the end of a slow news week. The algorithm picked it up. Within 12 hours, the comments section exploded. It wasn't the usual wedding crowd. It was our crowd, my crowd. I'm a high school biology teacher in Ohio. My students are desperate for positive climate news. Sending this link to my entire district. Are they getting married while deploying a research buoy? Because I am so here for that. Volunteering with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We need this kind of energy. Link, please. My 9th graders are building a ROV. Can we send the couple our schematics as a wedding gift? The comments were a flood tide of genuine, unadulterated enthusiasm. Eamon and I watched the registration count on our portal click past 5,000, then 10,000. Teachers were sharing it on their internal school boards. Environmental groups were cross-posting it. What we had intended as a quiet, open-access ceremony for our community was turning into an event. Then came the second plot twist. My phone buzzed with a direct message on a platform I rarely checked. The name on the profile made my breath catch. It was Eris Thorne, the Eris Thorne, the photojournalist whose work from the Antarctic ice shelves and the Amazon basin was legendary. His photos were stark, brutal, and achingly beautiful. They were the opposite of my family's staged portraits. They were truth. The message was brief. Ms. Hartwell, I've seen your research. I've seen your event portal. This is a story, not about a wedding, but about a community showing up, as you put it. I want to shoot it. No fee. I'll be bringing my assistant. This is the kind of ceremony that matters. I stared at the message. Eamon read it over my shoulder. Lena, he breathed. This is real. Eris Thorne didn't just take pictures. He created narratives. He was offering to document our story, to frame it for the world. His involvement was meant to be quiet, but someone on his team must have leaked it. A small culture blog in Boston ran a piece. Eris Thorne to shoot nerd wedding in Rhode Island. That's when the hashtag started. Eamon had put "Say Yes to the Ocean" in the metadata of our portal as a small joke. Someone found it. It caught fire. Within a day, it was trending in Boston, then Providence, then Washington, D.C. It was trending high enough for Vivian to see it. Vivian, whose entire career was built on monitoring social media trends for her clients, would have seen "Say Yes to the Ocean" and clicked on it, probably annoyed that it was distracting from her own wedding's carefully crafted hashtag. My phone rang, a number I hadn't blocked, but hadn't answered in weeks. My sister. I let it go to voicemail. The message she left was breathless, high-pitched with a panic I had never heard before. Lena, what is this? What is this joke? People are texting me. My clients are texting me. They're asking if I'm involved in some ocean thing. You put the geotag on Gull's Lantern Point? Are you insane? That's 20 minutes from Mom's house. You're making a fool of yourself. You have to stop this. You're upstaging me. Upstaging. There it was. The cardinal sin. Not that I was doing something strange or public, but that my strange public thing was getting more attention than her traditional, expensive one. About 10 minutes later, the real storm made landfall. My mother, Marla, my phone lit up. I muted the call. A voicemail notification appeared. I looked at Eamon. The log, I said. He nodded, opening a new spreadsheet. Data acquisition. I listened to the first message on speaker. Lena, darling? It's Mom. I heard the most bizarre rumor from Vivian. Something about a public event at the shore. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Call me. We need to clear this up. This is very confusing for the family. Click. 5 minutes later, voicemail 2. The pleasant confusion was gone, replaced by a strained, pleading whine. Lena Hartwell, you call me back right now. What is the meaning of this? Eris Thorne? A hashtag? What are you thinking? You are doing this just to spite your sister, aren't you? After everything we've done for you, this is so ungrateful. You are humiliating me. You are humiliating your father. Click. 1 minute later, voicemail 3, the mask was off. This was pure, undiluted rage. You think this is funny? You think this is clever? You are embarrassing this family. I am getting calls from the club. I am getting calls from Vivian's future in-laws. You are making us a laughingstock. A science wedding? It's pathetic. You will stop this circus immediately. I am not asking you. I am telling you. Shut it down. Click. A long pause. Maybe 20 minutes. Then, voicemail 4. The pivot to negotiation. It was almost funny. Lena, darling, listen, I think we've all been a little stressed. This wedding, Vivian's, it's a lot. Maybe I was hasty. If you stop this silly online thing, if you just take it down, you can come to Vivian's wedding. We'll make a place for you at one of the back tables. All right? Just call off this pathetic little tantrum. Be the sensible one. Click. And finally, after an hour of silence, the fifth and final voicemail. The voice was cold. All the fake warmth, all the rage, was gone. It was the voice of a CEO delivering a final warning. I see you're not answering. That's your choice. But know this, Lena, you are not a Hartwell. Not anymore. If you go through with this public disgrace, you will regret it. You are severing ties. Do you understand me? You are done. Click. I saved each audio file. I labeled them 1 through 5. I looked at Eamon. The mirror, I whispered. It's not just warped, it's shattered. The next day, the third plot twist arrived. It came as a formal, encrypted email from a Swiss law firm, forwarded to my Blue Current address. It was from a foundation, an anonymous one. Dear Dr. Hartwell and Mr. Baim Ruiz, it began. We have been observing the public interest in your upcoming Datum event with great interest. We are an organization dedicated to funding novel, high-visibility approaches to climate data acquisition. We believe your event is a new paradigm for public engagement. My heart was hammering. I read the next lines aloud to Eamon. We would like to propose a challenge grant. Your event is already garnering significant attention. If your live stream, broadcast via Tideglass, can reach and maintain a verified audience of 500,000 simultaneous viewers for the duration of the ceremony, our foundation will immediately donate $250,000 to the Blue Current Institute, earmarked for your proposed coral reef data mapping project. $250,000. If 500,000 people watched us get married, this was no longer a wedding, it was a fundraiser. It was a telethon. It was a high-stakes, real-time experiment in public engagement. Eamon, I said, my hands shaking for a different reason this time. We need more bandwidth. The Blue Current Institute agreed. When I showed the email to our director, she looked at me, looked at the check amount, and then looked at her calendar. Well, this is unprecedented, she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. Our entire IT and broadcast tech team seems to have requested that weekend off. I'm sure they'll be at home, resting. I certainly won't ask them where they'll be, or why they're taking 2 of our mobile server racks with them. Our real family was showing up. Eamon went into overdrive. The cliff angle is good, but it's static, he said, pacing our living room. Aris Thorne will get the ground shots. The Tideglass buoy will get the wide shot. But we're missing the water. We're missing the current. The next day, he used our contingency fund to rent a small, stable, 25-foot fishing boat. He and the Blue Current techs spent an afternoon loading it with a gyro-stabilized camera gimbal and a dedicated microwave transmitter. The floating camera station, he declared. It'll give us dynamic, water-level shots of the point, the cliffs, and the ceremony. It will make the ocean a character in the story, not just a backdrop. Bea called that night. Her voice was pure business. Okay, Lena, the plan is set. I've hired 3 of my rugby teammates as event staff. They're all 6 feet tall and very polite. We have a hard checkpoint at the access path. Guest list only. Anyone else gets turned away. And them? I asked, my voice small. Them, she said, is a special protocol. I've got your father, Marla, Vivian, and Vivian's fiancé, Grayson, on a contingency list. If they show, they will be informed that they are attending as general public. They will be seated in the last row. They will have no access to the stage, the microphones, or the technical tent. They will be guests. Lena, nothing more. This is your perimeter. It's solid. One final piece of preparation. I went to see the Institute's legal counsel. I explained the situation, the voicemails, the potential for disruption. He drafted what he called a smart image rights agreement. It was simple, elegant, and ruthless. We updated the public-facing portal. A new checkbox appeared. By attending this event, you consent to be filmed, recorded, and broadcast. You agree that any and all interactions, including any attempt to disrupt the proceedings, may be used in the public broadcast at the sole discretion of the hosts. We sent a copy of the new terms to every registered guest, including the contingency list addresses for Marla, Dale, and Vivian. The trap was set, the cameras were ready, the stage was built, and the entire world, it seemed, was waiting to see what would happen when a heavy object met an unmovable force. The day arrived not with a peal of trumpets, but with the scent of salt and the precise hum of well-oiled machinery. The chaos of the past weeks had resolved into a perfect, crystalline afternoon. The sky was a deep, cloudless cerulean, and the sun, beginning its long, slow descent, cast a light that was the color of warm honey. Eamon, ever the engineer, had taken a reading an hour before. The wind was a gentle, steady 12 knots from the northwest, just enough to make the sea oats sway, but not enough to challenge our microphones. The sea itself was a sheet of rippled blue steel, the waves just small, lapping crests. The script was set. Nature, it seemed, was our first and most reliable collaborator. Our guests began to arrive. This was not a crowd of stiff suits and cocktail dresses. This was our life, the local sea rescue team, their bright orange and yellow jackets, a brilliant slash of color against the gray granite, a cluster of STEM students from Providence High, whispering excitedly, their eyes wide, clutching their phones, our colleagues from Blue Current, a crowd of brilliant, practical people in warm sweaters and sensible shoes, carrying their curiosity like a sixth sense, and our neighbors, the ones who had watched Eamon and I haul gear back and forth, bringing thermoses of hot cider as a quiet gesture of support. Then, the first unscripted moment, plot twist number 4. From the tech tent. One of the IT guys from Blue Current shouted, Lena, you need to see this." I walked over. He pointed to the main monitor, which was showing the feed from Eamon's floating camera on the boat. It was zoomed in on a 30-foot community sailing vessel that had just rounded the point and dropped anchor a respectful 200 yards offshore. It was a beautiful old wooden boat, and unfurled from its mast, hanging like a battle standard, was a massive, simple white banner. In clear black letters, it read, "We show up for science." A cheer went up from the tech tent. My eyes burned. It was the local sailing co-op, the one Eamon volunteered for. They had heard. They had shown up. Aris Thorne and his assistant were already in motion, phantoms in black, their cameras clicking. They weren't taking posed shots. They were capturing the energy, the setup, the faces of the students as they spoke to a grizzled oceanographer. Above us, the cable cam, a small dark spider on a high-tension line, began its silent, programmed glide along the edge of the cliff, testing its signal. The tech tent gave a thumbs up. "We are stable. 4K signal is solid. Tide glass buoy is online. We are green to go live." And that's when they arrived. B, standing at the head of the narrow gravel path, spoke quietly into her headset. "Protocol contingency. They're here." My stomach didn't drop. It didn't flip. It just went cold. They walked in not as guests, but as a delegation. My mother, Marla, in a steel-gray designer coat that was utterly wrong for the setting. My sister, Vivian, in white trousers and a cashmere wrap, her face a mask of pale, tight fury. My father, Dale, trailing a few steps behind them, his gaze fixed on the ground, looking smaller than I had ever seen him, and with them, as the most bizarre and pathetic flourish, was Grayson, not her new husband, whose name I didn't even know, but her ex-boyfriend from college, Grayson, the one Marla had always adored, the one from the right family, looking profoundly uncomfortable, like a +1 dragged to an event he didn't understand, an honorable escort, a living prop. My mother stopped, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her pearls. Her eyes, sharp and quick, scanned the front row, the VIP seats. They were marked with simple, laminated tags, She was scanning for the names she knew. The bank presidents, the yacht club commodores, the old money surnames. Her face froze. I knew what she was seeing. Dr. Mar Liddell, Dr. Alistair Finch, the head of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, the director of the New England Coastal Conservancy. She was seeing a front row built on merit, not on inheritance. She turned, her expression curdling, and saw Eris Thorne, the heiress Thorne, documenting her confusion. Bea moved in, a picture of calm, professional grace in her black jacket and tactical boots. "Aunt Marla, Vivian, Uncle Dale," she said, her voice polite, audible, but giving no ground. "We're so glad you could make it. We have seats reserved for you, right this way." She gestured, not to the front, not to the middle, but to the last row of simple wooden chairs. Set back from the main aisle, near the generator truck, Marla's head snapped toward Bea. She hissed, just low enough that only Bea and I could hear. "Reserved? This is an insult. After all ungrateful." Bea didn't flinch. Her smile was small, bright, and made of titanium. "Today is Lena's day," she said, not as an apology, but as a statement of fact. Then she turned and walked away, leaving them to find their seats or to leave. They sat. In the tech tent, the broadcast director gave the signal. "We are live, 5 minutes to ceremony start." A large LED screen, which we had repurposed from the Institute's lecture hall, flickered to life. It wasn't showing pretty pictures. It was showing the data. It was the live, verified viewer count from StreamSphere. The number was already 98,000. As we watched, it ticked over, 100,000, 110,000. A ripple of applause went through the guests who could see it. The number kept climbing. 145,000. The pressure was on. The grant was in sight. I stepped back, behind a simple canvas screen that separated the guest area from our small staging point. Eamon was there, waiting for me. He wasn't in a tuxedo. He was in a simple, dark gray linen suit, no tie. He looked steady. He looked like home. He took my hand. His was warm. Mine was cold. "You okay?" he whispered. "I am now," I said. We stood there, just the two of us, listening to the wind, the low murmur of the crowd, and the distant cry of the gulls. We were in the golden hour. The light was perfect. Suddenly, a gasp went up from the crowd, followed by a flurry of clicks from Eris Thorne's camera. "Look," Eamon breathed, pointing, on the simple bamboo archway, on the crossbeam Eamon had built. A large white seabird had landed. It perched there, bold and calm, tilting its head as if to inspect the proceedings. It was magnificent. The cable cam, capturing its pre-programmed sweep, glided right past it, catching the bird in perfect, sharp 4K resolution, framed against the honey gold sky and the deep blue water. In the tech tent, I could hear the monitor for the live chat feed going insane. "It's a sign." Did they train that bird? That shot was beautiful. Nature is here for this. The bird stayed for a long, perfect 10 seconds, then launched itself into the wind, a flash of white against the sun. Eamon squeezed my hand. Dr. Finch, our officiant, moved to the lectern, the low melodic notes of a single cello, played by a friend from the local symphony, began to sound. It was time. I took one. Deep breath. I smelled the salt, the drying sea oats, the faint, clean trace of ozone from the equipment. I had spent 30 years being silent. I had spent 30 years being heavy and difficult. I was ready. I was ready to tell them who I was. I was ready to tell them what we were building. We stepped out from behind the canvas screen, not to a solemn march, but to the clean, single line of a cello playing against the wind. We walked the 10 steps to the bamboo arch, hand in hand. The world narrowed to this patch of granite, this man, and the sea. Dr. Alistair Finch adjusted his glasses at the lectern, his white hair a stark contrast to the deepening blue of the ocean behind him. He looked out at the water, not at us. For a long moment before he spoke, his voice, amplified just enough, was clear and resonant. "We are gathered here," he began, "by the sound of the Atlantic, an entity of immense power, complexity, and patience. The ocean, as my former student Dr. Hartwell knows well, does not yield its secrets easily." He turned his gaze to us, a rare, warm smile touching his features. "It teaches us that collecting good data takes time. It teaches us that understanding deep currents requires looking past the surface, and it teaches us that love, much like long-term climate modeling, requires patience, rigor, and a commitment to the truth, no matter how inconvenient." A gentle laugh rippled through our colleagues. "Doctor," Finch nodded to me. It was my turn. I took a shaky breath, but as I looked at Eamon, my voice found its center. I didn't see the cameras. I didn't see the rising viewer count. I just saw him. "Eamon," I began, "for my entire life, I have been measuring the world. I measure atmospheric pressure, sea level rise, and thermal deviations. I was taught to quantify, to analyze, to find the flaw in the data set. I was taught to see everything in terms of its weight, and then I met you. You are the man who taught me that the most important things cannot be quantified by conventional metrics. You taught me that worth is not determined by social approval, and that brilliance doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be true. You are my anchor. You are my true north." The tears came, but they were warm. They were not heavy. "So I promise to be your partner, your engineer, and your co-author. I promise to measure the wind with you, to measure the current with you, and to never, ever measure our value by anyone else's ruler." Eamon's smile was the only light I needed. He took both of my hands in his. "Lena," he said, his voice rough with an emotion he never tried to hide, "I am an engineer. I spend my days trying to build things that last in the most unforgiving environment on Earth. I build for pressure, for corrosion, for the sheer, brutal force of the sea. I know what strength looks like." He touched the sea glass ring on my finger. "You are the strongest person I have ever known. You are solid. You are a fundamental force. You have spent so much of your life being told you were heavy, and they were right. But they used the wrong definition. You have the beautiful, necessary weight of gravity. You keep things grounded. You keep me grounded. So I promise this," he continued, his eyes locked on mine. "I promise to always see you, especially when the world pretends not to. I promise to be the safe harbor for your heavy thoughts, because your thoughts are the ones that will change the world. I promise to be your data point, your proof, your partner. I love you." "Doctor," Finch cleared his throat, visibly moved. "Do you have the rings?" A young woman from the front row, one of the high school STEM students, stepped forward. She wasn't a ring bearer. She was a future colleague, wearing a blue currant sweatshirt and a look of absolute awe. She held up a small, 3D printed box. "Dr. Hartwell, Mr. Ruiz," she said, her voice trembling just a little. "The STEM Club, we wanted to be part of this. We made these." Eamon opened the box. Inside were 2 bands of polished, recycled silver. Where the stone should have been, there was a simple, clear cabochon, and fused inside, it was the sand from this very beach, a gift from the next generation, a piece of the earth we were trying to protect. I slid the silver band onto Eamon's finger. He slid mine onto my left hand, a perfect mate to the sea glass. They were simple, solid, and real. As our hands joined, the wind rose. It was not a violent gust, but a long, steady sigh from the ocean. The specialized microphones did their job, filtering the blast and capturing the sound. The broadcast feed was suddenly filled with the deep, whispering shush of the surf hitting the rocks below. It was the planet, serving as the soundtrack. "Doctor," Finch smiled, "we come to the witnessing. A marriage is not just a promise, but a public declaration. We require a witness to attest to this data." I expected Bea to step forward, but she stayed at her post. Instead, a figure rose from the front row, Professor Mara Liddell. She strode up to us, bypassing the lectern, every inch the Antarctic veteran in her practical windbreaker. She was holding a large, rolled-up document, tied with a simple blue ribbon. "Alistair," she said, nodding to Dr. Finch. "I'll take it from here." She turned to us, her expression unreadable. She unrolled the document. It was not a poem, it was a charter. "Lena Hartwell," she boomed, her voice cutting through the wind. "When you were my student, I told you to stop being sentimental and focus on the data. I am glad to see you have finally learned to do both. A marriage is a contract," she continued, "but a partnership like this," she gestured between Eamon and me, "is an institution. The board of the Coastal Conservancy met this morning. We do not give wedding gifts, we make investments." She held the charter up. The cable cam glided in, catching a perfect close-up of the text. "In recognition of this partnership, and in honor of the funds this event is generating, we are proud to announce the formal charter of the Hartwell-Ruiz Coastal Data Station, to be located right here, on Gull's Lantern Point. This," she said, handing the stiff parchment to me, "is your witness, a permanent one." My hands were shaking as I took it. A data station, named for us. In the tech tent, a sudden, loud cheer erupted, shattering the formal silence. The broadcast director, a man I barely knew, was pumping his fist in the air. He looked at me, his eyes wide, and held up his whiteboard, scrawled in black marker, 501,000, and climbing. We had done it. We had passed the 500,000 mark. On the monitor displaying the live chat, the text became an unreadable waterfall of congratulations. We did it. Science! This is a wedding! A second later, a loud, formal ding sounded from the director's laptop. He held the whiteboard up again. Fund confirmed, $250,000. $250,000. Aris Thorne, the photojournalist, reacted instantly. He didn't point his camera at us. He swung it around, his lens aimed directly at the last row. The broadcast director saw his move and followed his lead. The main feed cut, for just 3 seconds, to the faces of my family. My father was staring, his face utterly blank, as if wiped clean. Vivian's face was a war of emotions. Not just anger. I saw envy. I saw confusion. I saw, for the first time, a look of profound, unsettling doubt. And my mother, Marla. Her face was chalk white, her mouth slightly open. She was staring at the LED screen showing the viewer count, then at Professor Liddell, then at the charter in my hand. It was the face of a person who had just watched her entire, carefully curated universe collapse in on itself. She was seeing, in real time, the tangible, financial power of the world she had dismissed as heavy and irrelevant. Dr. Finch, beaming, stepped back to the microphone. "Well," he declared, his voice full of humor, "it seems the data is conclusive, by the power vested in me by the state of Rhode Island, and with the validation of the global scientific community. Eamon, you may kiss your wife." Eamon pulled me in, and the kiss was salt and wind and victory. It was the taste of reality. The crowd was on its feet, our friends, our colleagues, the students. They were cheering, clapping, shouting, and then another sound, cutting through it all, a deep, resonant boom from the water. The community sailboat, the one with the "We Show Up for Science" banner, was sounding its horn, a long, triumphant blast that echoed off the cliffs. We turned to the crowd, hands clasped high. The sun had just touched the horizon, and the sky was a blaze of copper and deep purple. The shadows on the rocks were long and sharp, as if cued by the kiss. The wind lanterns we had strung along the perimeter path flickered on, dozens of small, warm lights illuminating the twilight like captured stars. Eamon leaned in, his lips brushing my ear, his voice for me alone. "Well, Dr. Hartwell-Ruiz," he whispered. "We did it. We just got married and simultaneously launched a fully funded living laboratory." I laughed, a real, full laugh, that the wind carried away. Best wedding gift ever. Eris Thorne was already at our feet, his lens pointed down. The broadcast feed cut to his angle. A tight, macro shot of our joined hands. My sea glass ring. Eamon's silver and sand band. Our fingers were interlocked, and already, the wind had dusted them with a fine layer of sand and granite. We were not just at this place, we belonged to this place. We were, at last, part of the data. The ceremony was the declaration. The reception was the proof. As the sun vanished, the deep indigo of the twilight sky took over, and the chill off the water became sharp. But the space we had created was warm. It was alive. This was no stiff ballroom reception. We had turned Gull's lantern point into a living forum. We had 3 large, circular fire pits roaring on the granite flats, their light casting flickering, dramatic shadows. Our guests, wrapped in sweaters, clustered around them. The local co-op's food stations were serving steaming bowls of seafood chowder, grilled oysters, and hot cider. There was no assigned seating, no formal dinner. Instead, we had high-top tables scattered across the area, encouraging people to move, to mingle, to talk. And they were talking. This was the most beautiful part. The mini-talk stations were thriving. I watched a group of the high school STEM students, their faces bright with firelight and excitement, crowded around one of our lead engineers from Blue Current. They were grilling him on his tidal turbine designs. He, in turn, was treating their questions with the same gravity he would a panel of his peers. I saw Dr. Finch, who had married us, laughing as a local rescue diver debated a finer point of coastal currents with him. This was my community. This was our family. It was a gathering of minds, not just a collection of obligations. The broadcast, of course, had not stopped. The viewer count, displayed on the large LED screen, had stabilized at just over 700,000. The energy from the global audience was palpable, a humming, invisible presence. The broadcast director from the tech tent, a man named Kyle, whom I now considered a lifelong friend, hurried over to Eamon and me. He was beaming, his headset pushed back on his hair. Dr. Hartwell Ruiz, Mr. Ruiz, the engagement is, I've never seen anything like this. Streamsphere is officially making this their global homepage feature. We are cleared for plot twist 6. This was the part Eamon and I had hoped for. Go, Eamon said, clapping Kyle on the shoulder. Activate the forum. Kyle spoke into his headset. All right, team, we are live with the Q&A. Patch the feed. The LED screen flickered. The viewer count was replaced by a live interactive map of the world, pulsing with small, bright pings of light. We are now opening the floor to our global guests. Kyle's voice boomed over the event speakers, his voice now the official MC of the forum. We have viewers from over 62 countries joining us. Our first question will be, Live from Nebraska. This is Mrs. Helen Shriver. A window popped up on the screen. The face of a kind-looking woman in her 50s, wearing glasses, filled the monitor. She was sitting in what was clearly a classroom, colorful science posters taped to the wall behind her. She was, to my astonishment, crying. Oh my goodness, she said, her voice trembling but clear. Dr. Hartwell Ruiz. Lena. I'm a middle school earth science teacher. My school is in a very rural part of the state. I've been showing this event, to my after-school STEM club for girls. They're all right here, just off camera. She took a shaky breath, trying to compose herself. For these girls, to see a woman leading this, to see you refuse to be small, to see you turn your life's work, your data, into a celebration. She choked on a sob. My students needed this. They are told every day, in 100 small ways, to be quiet, to be pretty, to not be heavy. You just showed them what a hero looks like. Thank you. Thank you for showing them how to build their own stage. A wave of thunderous, heartfelt applause erupted from our guests. They were clapping for Helen in Nebraska. I felt Eamon's hand grip mine, hard. I was speechless. This, This was the entire point. This was the realignment. This was the work. It was such a moment of pure, emotional victory that I almost didn't register the movement from the back row, but the cameras did. Marla Hartwell was on her feet. She was energized. She saw the global map. She heard the applause for the woman on the screen. She saw the emotion, the power. She saw a stage, and in her world, a stage, any stage, was meant for her. She began walking, her pace quick, her steel gray coat flapping, making a direct line for the central tech tent where Kyle stood. She was marching toward the main lectern. B, ever vigilant, saw her coming and moved to intercept, her headset on, her expression polite but unyielding. "Aunt Marla," B said, her voice low, trying not to be overheard. "This area is for the broadcast team." "I need the microphone," Marla snapped, her voice sharp, cutting through the din. "I am the mother of the bride." B held her ground, a polite, firm wall. "I'm sorry, but there are no family speeches scheduled. The program is set for the global Q&A. This computation did not compute in Marla's brain. The denial, the scheduling. "Scheduled?" Her voice rose, cracking with pure theatrical indignation. "This is my daughter's wedding. This is my moment. The family must be heard." It was a demand, loud and clear in the sudden lull. Eris Thorne, who had been documenting the fire pits, swung his heavy camera around with the speed of a predator. The main broadcast, which had been preparing for the next caller, caught his movement. The director, seeing Thorne's instinct, instantly widened the shot. And just like that, my mother was on a global feed, in front of 700,000 people, her face a mask of fury, demanding a microphone she had not earned. The live chat, which had been a waterfall of "We love you, Nebraska" and "STEM Girls Rock," flickered. Wait, who is that lady? Is that the mom? Hold on, that's the one who uninvited her, right? The heavy atmosphere lady? She wants the mic now, after trying to silence her? The audacity. This is peak narcissism. Someone get that woman a stage. This is better than reality TV. No, this is reality, and it's awful. Go away, lady. Vivian saw it. I watched her see it. She saw the camera light. She saw the live chat on a nearby monitor. She saw the faces of our guests, the professors, the scientists, her old neighbors, turning, their expressions shifting from warmth to confusion and embarrassment. She saw the car crash. "Mom!" she hissed, rushing forward and grabbing Marla's arm. Her face was white. "Mom! Stop! Not here! Not now! You are making a scene! They are filming this! It's my scene to make!" Marla retorted, shaking her arm off, her eyes fixed on the microphone in Kyle's hand. And in that second, Vivian's perfect, polished PR facade did not just crack, it shattered. The composure she had spent a lifetime building dissolved into raw, unfiltered panic. She wasn't just embarrassed, she was terrified. She looked across the crowd at me, her eyes wide, a silent, desperate plea. Do something. This was her worst nightmare. This was the heavy, uncontrolled reality she had spent her entire life trying to escape, and our mother was dragging her into it in front of the entire world. Eamon's hand was on the small of my back. "Your call, my love," he murmured, his voice a solid, warm anchor in the storm. "Whatever you decide, I am right here." I looked at my mother, her face flushed with entitlement, demanding the spotlight. I looked at Vivian, frozen in her own personal hell. I looked at the face of Helen Shriver from Nebraska, still on the screen. A witness. I knew exactly what to do. This was not a family fight. This was a data point that needed to be addressed, publicly. I walked calmly past B, into the center of the conflict. I took the wireless microphone from Kyle's startled hand. He saw my face and nodded once, stepping back. "Mom." My voice, amplified, calm, and clear, cut through the tension, every guest, every camera, every online viewer, focused. Marla froze, her hand still outstretched. "Mom, you want to speak," I said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. This is a forum for truth, and we are not afraid of the truth here, so we will listen. I held the microphone out to her, an offering. "But," I continued, my eyes holding hers, my voice dropping to a lower, more serious tone. "We will listen in an environment of truth and respect, as you have heard. We have guests here, from all over the world. They are here because we value transparency. Are you prepared to speak with that same transparency?" Kyle, the director, was a genius. He saw the play. He spoke quietly into his headset. "Kill the ambiance. Hit the spots. Now." The warm, festive lights of the fire pits and the wind lanterns faded. The chatter died. The entire world went dark and silent. And then, two sharp, brilliant spotlights from the broadcast rigging snapped on, intersecting on the small patch of granite where my mother and I stood. It was just the two of us, illuminated against the blackness of the ocean, the cameras rolling, the world watching, the waves crashing in the sudden, absolute silence. The stage was set. The two spotlights cut through the darkness, painting us in a stark, theatrical white. In the silence, the only sound was the wind and the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves. My mother stood trapped in the beam, her bravado faltering for just a second. This was not the intimate, controllable family living room. This was a global stage. She grabbed the microphone from my hand, her knuckles white. She was a performer, and the spotlight was her cue. She drew herself up, her face arranging itself into a mask of maternal grievance. "I am Lena's mother," she began, her voice projecting, practiced, finding the right tone of pained nobility. "And I only want what is best for my family. A mother's love is complex. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices to protect the ones we love. This entire production, this is not who Lena is. This is a performance. All I have ever wanted is for my daughters to be happy, safe, and appropriate." Appropriate. There it was, the core value. "Thank you, Mom," I said, my voice perfectly level. I did not take the microphone back. I spoke into my own lapel mic, which was still live. "You've raised several important points. A mother's love, difficult choices, appropriate. I am a scientist. I believe in peer review. I believe in showing the data. Kyle?" I turned to the tech tent. Kyle, headset on, was already at his keyboard. "Please bring up file Hartwell Archive A." The massive LED screen, which had been dark, flickered to life. It was no longer a map. It was a screenshot of a text message. My mother's text message. From Marla Hartwell to Lena Hartwell. Subject, the wedding, Lena. "Don't come to Vivian's wedding. You make the atmosphere too heavy." A collective gasp went up from the in-person guests. The online chat, visible on a side monitor, became an unreadable blur of shocked emojis and angry text. But I wasn't done. "Kyle, please zoom in on the metadata. File Hartwell Archive B." The screen shifted. A new file appeared, showing the message's properties. The sensitive IP and location data were redacted with professional black bars, just as I had instructed, but the timestamp was clear. Sent, August 14th, 2:32 p.m. "Just 3 months ago," I narrated, my voice as calm as if I were presenting a climate model. "Sent from the IP address registered to the Hartwell family home. The difficult choice, as my mother calls it, was to exclude me from my sister's wedding via text message, for the crime of being heavy." I turned back to Marla. Her face was ashen. The spotlight was unforgiving. "Is this the different kind of love you were referring to? Mom? Is this the protection, or is this image control?" Before Marla could form a word, a new voice joined. B. She was walking calmly into the light, holding her own phone up to the broadcast tech. "Kyle," she said, her voice firm. "I have another data point. File Heartlog C. This is plot twist 7, I believe." Kyle took the feed. The LED screen changed again. This time, it was a screenshot of the Hartwell Family Happenings group chat. The online audience saw a series of bubbly, excited messages. They saw a link, posted by Marla, to a high-end designer's website for bridesmaid dresses. And then, directly below it, they saw the small, gray system-generated text. Lena Hartwell was removed from the group. The silence that followed was heavier than any atmosphere I had ever created. The online chat went from furious to something else, a cold, focused rage. She was kicked out. After sending dress links? That is ice cold. This is not a mother. This is a monster. This is not a condemnation, I said, cutting through the rising anger, my voice sharp, commanding the narrative. I am not here to put my mother on trial. This is not revenge. I looked at the 700,000 unseen viewers, at the shocked faces of my colleagues, and finally, at Marla. This is a definition of boundaries. My whole life, I was told my work, my mind, myself was a problem because it did not fit the desired image. My mother's version of love was about control. My sister's wedding was an event that had to be controlled. I was the variable she could not predict. So I was removed from the equation. That is her right. But it is my right to build a new equation. The words hung in the air, and then a small, choked sound. Vivian. She stepped forward, out of the shadows and into the edge of the spotlight. She was trembling. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw her. Not the PR executive, not the social star, but a terrified, complicit woman. She's right, Vivian whispered, the sound barely caught by the microphones. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and her voice grew stronger. I knew Mom sent that text. I knew she kicked you out of the chat. And I was silent. She took a shuddering breath, the tears she had been fighting now streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. I was silent because I was relieved, because I just wanted one perfect day. One day where I was the center. One day where your accomplishments didn't make me feel small, and I am so sorry. Lena, I am sorry. It was a full confession, in front of the world, the live chat feed, which had been a river of fury, stuttered, it slowed. The anger was replaced by hearts, pink, blue, red. Wow, that's real. She's a victim too. This is my family. This is exactly my family. My sister and me. Oh God. Marla was staring at Vivian, her face a mask of utter betrayal. This was not in the script. Her supporting actress had just gone rogue. She turned on me, her eyes blazing, the mask of the noble mother vaporizing to reveal the raw, desperate narcissism beneath. You did this, she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. This was always it. You couldn't stand her having a moment. This entire, pathetic, science wedding, this is just to compete with your sister. You've always been jealous. You've always wanted to ruin her. You're just trying to prove you're better than her. The accusation, so old and tired, had no power. Not here, not tonight. No, Mom, I said, my voice soft, but absolute. I have no competition. I looked at Vivian, and then back at my mother. I am not in a race against anyone. Vivian's life is her own. My life is my own. The difference is, I am not trying to break anyone else's stage. I am just choosing to build my own. I looked at Vivian, who was watching me. Her expression broken and open. I saw the sister I had lost, not the rival I had been assigned. I walked over to her. I bypassed my mother, who was still holding the microphone like a dead weapon. I held my own lapel mic out to Vivian. You're in the spotlight now, Viv, I said, my voice gentle, for her and for the world. Without her script, what do you want to say? Vivian looked at the microphone. She looked at our mother. Marla was frozen, staring at this transfer of power, this ultimate betrayal. Vivian took a deep, ragged breath. She looked straight at Marla. "I'm tired," she said, her voice cracking, but finding a new, steel-edged core. "I am so tired, Mom, of the pressure, of the image, of having to be on every minute of every day, of pretending my sister's brilliance was something to be managed. I'm 32 years old, and I don't even know what I like. I only know what you told me to like. I don't want to live like this anymore." It was the single most honest thing I had ever heard her say. The director, Kyle, was a master. He kept the main camera on Vivian, but he had Eris Thorne's camera, the roaming one, push past the crowd in the back. The lens zoomed, slowly, precisely. It found my father, Dale, standing alone near the generator, half in shadow, half in the reflected light of the screen. He was not looking at his wife or his daughters. He was looking at his shoes. And as the camera tightened, it caught what no one was meant to see. A single, involuntary tear tracking silently down his cheek, illuminated for just a second, before he angrily wiped it away. The truth had just landed, and every role in the Hartwell family, every silent contract and every unspoken rule had just been irrevocably broken. The silence that followed Vivian's confession was absolute, heavier than any I had ever known. We were a frozen tableau in the twin spotlights. My mother, gaping at her daughter's betrayal, Vivian, crying silently, having finally detonated the truth, and me, standing between them, the world watching. Marla was the first to move. Her shame, her exposure, lasted only a second before it calcified, hardening instantly into a final, desperate surge of self-righteous fury. She still clutched the microphone, a weapon she refused to surrender. This is an ambush," she spat, her voice shaking with rage, not grief. "A coordinated, cruel ambush. You've turned my own daughter against me. But I will not be silenced by this adolescent theater." She drew herself up, her face a mask of practiced martyrdom, her eyes scanning the darkness for a camera she could appeal to. "This is my family, and I am still the mother of the bride. I will be heard. I demand my right to give my speech." She was trying to reset the narrative, to claw the scene back into a script she recognized, one where she was the benevolent matriarch, wronged but forgiving. She was demanding the spotlight to save her own image. I looked at her. This woman who had spent 30 years trying to edit my existence. I looked at the microphone in her hand. I looked at the LED screen. The viewer count, after the family drama, had not dropped. It had surged. It was now ticking past 1.2 million. The live chat was a waterfall of commands. "Don't let her speak. Finish her, Lena. Read the rest of the texts." I had the power. I had the data. I had the audience. I could have taken the microphone and systematically dismantled every lie, every manipulation, every forgotten achievement and petty slight of my entire life. I could have ended her. I saw Eamon watching me from the edge of the light. His face was steady. He was not telling me what to do. He was just trusting me. I turned my head and looked past the guests, past the granite cliffs, to the black, heaving line of the ocean. The sound of the waves, patient and eternal, was the only truth that mattered. This was never about her. This was about the work. I turned my back. I physically turned my back on Marla Hartwell and the microphone of vengeance she was clutching. I faced the tech tent and the world. I spoke into my own lapel mic, my voice clear and ringing with a new, final authority. "Kyle, bring the main lights back up, please, all of them, and bring the audio feed back to the main program." The two harsh spotlights snapped off, and the warm, golden light of the fire pits and the wind lanterns flooded back in. The atmosphere of a public trial vanished, replaced by the warmth of a community gathering. It was over. Marla was left standing alone in the restored light, the microphone in her hand now just a useless piece of plastic, the power gone. I walked back to the lectern, the center of our stage. "Thank you all for witnessing that," I said. My voice reasoned. "Welcome to everyone, both here on the cliff and watching across the world. You came here for a wedding, and you were given a lesson in data transparency. But the most important data is not about the past, it is about building the future. It is time for all of us to make our ocean pledge. A new energy buzzed through the crowd. The tension broke, replaced by anticipation. We have just received confirmation from StreamSphere, I announced, my voice soaring. Our live stream has passed 1.2 million simultaneous viewers. A roar went up from our guests, a genuine, joyous explosion of sound. That means, I gripped Eamon's hand, that we did it. We have officially secured the $250,000 grant for the Coral Reef Data Mapping Project. The cheer was deafening, but I held up a hand. The climax was not yet here. That grant, I said, the smile on my face so wide it hurt, was just the down payment. Tonight, Eamon and I are honored to announce the formal creation of the Hartwell Tide Fellowship. I said the name, my name, the name my mother had tried to disgrace. I was reclaiming it. I was rebranding it. This fellowship, I continued, effective immediately, will be an annual, fully funded grant, awarded to 3 young women from underserved high schools who wish to pursue a career in marine science. It will be administered by the Blue Current Institute, and its starting funds are the $250,000 we just raised together. And, I said, looking at Kyle, who was grinning from ear to ear, it appears our anonymous donor would like to say a few words. Kyle, patch the video call. Plot twist 8. The giant LED screen lit up. The face that appeared was not a corporate logo. It was an elderly woman, perhaps 80, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a magnificent pile of silver hair. She was sitting in a study, surrounded by books. She looked directly into the camera, her expression one of deep, profound satisfaction. Lena Hartwell, the woman said, her voice a strong, clear alto that needed no amplification. You do not know me, but my name is Dr. Agnes Vance, and I knew your grandmother, Eleanor Hartwell, very, very well. My heart stopped. Dr. Agnes Vance, the Agnes Vance, a legend in biotechnology, a self-made billionaire, one of the most powerful venture capitalists in the world. My mother, I saw from the corner of my eye, looked like she had seen a ghost. Eleanor and I were roommates at Radcliffe, Dr. Vance continued, her voice softening. She was a brilliant physicist, one of the best minds of her generation, and I watched her get sidelined, patted on the head, and told to focus on her family. I watched your grandfather and your mother, Marla, dim her light until it went out. She looked right at me, her gaze piercing, affectionate. I was at your christening. Lena, I've been watching you from afar. I was at the Hartwell Christmas party when you were 10 years old. I watched you try to explain plate tectonics to your father, and he laughed and told you to go play with Vivian's new dollhouse. I saw them doing it to you, the same pattern, the same heavy label for a brilliant mind. Tears were streaming down my face. I made a promise to Eleanor's memory, Dr. Vance said, that if I ever saw her spark in one of her descendants, I would protect it. That $250,000? That was just the test, dear, to see if you knew how to build a stage. You do. My foundation will be matching that amount. Every year. For the next 20 years. That is a $5 million commitment. I choked on a sob. Eamon put his arm around my waist, holding me up. $5 million. You just build the future. Dr. Hartwell Ruiz, Agnes said, a fierce smile on her face. We'll handle the invoices. The call ended. For a full 10 seconds. The only sound was the wind. Then, Dr. Alistair Finch stepped up to the lectern, his own eyes wet. Our program, he announced, his voice thick with emotion. Calls for a pledge, on the back of your programs, and now on the main screen for our friends at home, is the Ocean Pledge. I invite all our guests to please stand and read it aloud with Lena and Eamon. A great, unified rustle as every guest on the cliffside got to their feet. Eamon and I, our hands clasped, turned to the screen and read the words we had written, our voices joining the hundreds of our community. It was a simple promise, 30 seconds long, a promise to listen to the data, to advocate for the truth, and to fund the science that protects our shared ocean. As we spoke the final words, a shout came from the tech tent. It was Kyle, his headset off, his face a picture of pure ecstatic panic. The pledge page, the mentorship link we posted. It's down. It's crashed. We're overloaded. The 1.2 million people watching had not just been an audience, they were a community. They had heard the call to action, the link to mentor the new fellowship students, and they had responded so overwhelmingly that our servers had collapsed in under 3 minutes. My heart felt too big for my chest. I turned, wiping the tears from my eyes, and looked at my family. Marla. She was frozen in the same spot, the dead microphone dangling from her fingers. Her face was blank. She was staring at the screen where Agnes Vance's $5 million pledge had been. She was staring at the cheering crowd. She finally understood. The power she had worshipped, the social capital, the financial weight. It was not in her world. It was here, in my heavy, irrelevant world. She had not just lost the argument. She had been rendered completely, irreversibly irrelevant. The world had moved on, and she was left alone in the dark. Vivian stepped toward me, her face raw and open. She didn't speak. She just fell into my arms, grabbing me in a fierce, desperate hug, her shoulders shaking. It was the first real hug I had ever had from her. She whispered in my ear, her voice broken. "I am so sorry. Lena, can we start over? Please? Outside of her spotlight. I want to know my sister." I held her back, just as tightly. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes." Then, my father, Dale. He walked slowly out of the shadows. He looked pale, smaller, older. He stopped in front of Eamon and me. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes were red. He finally managed the only 2 words that mattered. "I'm sorry." It wasn't a speech. It wasn't eloquent. But it was not a performance. It was the truth. I looked at him. This man whose silence had been his complicity for 30 years. "I accept the truth, Dad," I said, my voice steady. The rest has to be done with actions." He nodded, a look of profound, weary relief on his face. And at that exact moment, as if the planet itself was signing the contract, a powerful gust of wind, a true nor'easter blast, swept up the cliff face. It was cold and clean and smelled of the deep, honest ocean. It hit the banner on the sailboat anchored offshore, the "We Show Up for Science" flag, which had been hanging limp, snapped taut with a sound like a rifle shot. It flew out perfectly straight, perpendicular to the cliff, pointing directly at the main broadcast camera. A final, defiant exclamation point. Kyle, the broadcast director, stepped back to the lectern. His face, illuminated by the glow of his monitors, was a mask of exhausted triumph. He looked out at the crowd, then at me, his eyes shining. "Lena, Dr. Hartwell Ruiz," he said, his voice catching, projecting to the world. "Our broadcast time is coming to an end. The servers are stable. The pledge count is... Frankly, it's something none of us have ever seen before. The world is watching. Do you have any final words for them?" I looked at Eamon. His hand found mine, his grip solid, anchoring me. I looked out at the faces, lit by the warm glow of the fire pits. My colleagues, the scientists, their faces bright with intellectual joy. The students, clustered together, vibrating with an energy that felt like the future. The neighbors and volunteers, their arms crossed, nodding with a quiet, fierce approval. I saw Vivian, standing next to Bea by the path, her work done, watching me with an expression I had never seen before. Simple, clear-eyed pride. I saw my father, standing near the edge of the granite, just watching me, finally, just seeing me. I stepped to the microphone. The wind had softened. The gust had passed, leaving a clean, cold silence that held the sound of the sea. Family, I began, my voice carrying over the cliffs and across the globe. We use that word a lot. For most of my life, I thought family was an obligation, a group you were assigned to, a non-negotiable role you had to play. I thought it was about blood. I paused, looking at my real community. Tonight, I learned that family isn't about blood, it's about truth. Family are the people who are willing to stand with you when the truth is switched on. Family are the people who stay in the room when the lights get harsh, not the ones who try to dim them. And tonight, I said, my voice thick with emotion, my family is here. My family is over 1 million strong. I turned to the crowd, to the cameras, to the scientists, my colleagues, who showed up for the data. Thank you for being my foundation. To the teachers, like Helen in Nebraska, who are building the next generation. Thank you for being our purpose. To the volunteers, the sailors, the divers, the neighbors. Thank you for being our community. And to the students, thank you for being our future. You are the real honored guest tonight. We made a promise, an ocean pledge. Now, I invite everyone here and everyone watching at home to sign it. Kyle, bring up the datum map. The massive LED screen, which had shown the data and the drama, now shifted. It became a dark, beautiful, interactive map of the world's oceans. On the website, I said, there is a button. Sign the pledge. We invite you to add your name digitally. You are not just signing a petition, you are adding your light. As I spoke, the map began to change. A single, bright dot appeared off the coast of Rhode Island, our new data station. Then another, and another, dots began appearing. Slow at first, then in a flood, a cluster in Ohio, a stream of light across the United Kingdom, dots in Japan, in South Africa, in Brazil. Each name, each commitment, appearing as a tiny, brilliant star on the dark water. The map was coming alive, a new constellation of human hope. Eamon stepped up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist as we watched the world light up. He rested his chin on my shoulder, his voice low, for me. But the mic caught it. Look at that. Lena. He pointed to the screen, where the Hartwell Tide Fellowship logo was now superimposed over the map. You spent your whole life wondering if you were worthy of your name. Tonight, you didn't just reclaim it, you redefined it. You wrote the Hartwell name back into history, not as a symbol of image, but as a source of opportunity. You gave it away to the next generation. I turned my head, just slightly, to look at the last row. The last row of chairs was empty. Marla was gone. She had not stormed off. She had not made a scene. She had simply evaporated, slipped away into the shadows of the parking area. The dead microphone left on her empty wooden chair like a shed skin. The spotlight had moved. The power had shifted. And when she was no longer the center of gravity, she had ceased to exist. The object of her entire desperate struggle was now just a piece of useless plastic. Vivian, however, was still there. She was not near the lectern. She was not seeking the camera. She was standing next to B by the exit path, where a box of Ocean Pledge wristbands, simple blue cords made of recycled fishing nets, were being handed out to guests. She was working. She was handing them out, one by one, making eye contact, smiling a small, tired, real smile. She had left the center of the stage to learn how to be the support. She was, for the first time, part of the crew. As I watched, my father, Dale, walked slowly out of the shadows. He stopped at my feet. During the chaos of Marla's confrontation, my simple laminated host badge must have fallen from my dress. He bent down, his knees cracking slightly, and picked it up from the dusty granite. He didn't just hand it to me. He looked at it, wiped a smudge of dirt off the plastic with his thumb, and then, with a careful, deliberate gesture, pinned it back onto the shoulder of my dress. It was a small, clumsy, profoundly gentle act. It was not a performance, it was a repair. He met my eyes, nodded once, and stepped back. Kyle's voice came over the speaker system, official and awed. Streamsphere has the final numbers. Folks, as of broadcast end, we have logged 1.84 million simultaneous viewers. A sustained, warm cheer rose from the cliff. The Hartwell Tide Fellowship pledge page, he continued, his voice breaking, has received over 50,000 mentorship applications and has exceeded its first-day funding goal by, well, we can't count that high yet. The servers are happy. Congratulations, Dr. Hartwell Ruiz and Mr. Ruiz. The applause was the sound of completion, as if cued by the final numbers. A single, sharp pop came from the darkness of the water. The sailing vessel, our We Show Up for Science crew, fired a single, small, white signal flare. It wasn't a firework, it was a distress flare. Repurposed as a celebration, it shot up, burst into a magnesium-bright star, and hung in the air, casting a brilliant, stark white circle on the black water directly below it. The floating camera, Eamon's camera, swung to catch it, and in that circle of pure white light, the ocean, which had been black and reflective, suddenly became transparent. The camera captured a breathtaking, unscripted miracle, a massive shoal of baitfish, thousands upon thousands, drawn in by the light, swirling just beneath the surface in a perfect, living vortex of silver. It was a moment of pure, chaotic, biological beauty. Nature itself, answering the call, showing us the life we were all here to protect. The flare died, plunging the water back into darkness. The crowd was silent, breathless from the sight. I knew the main broadcast camera was on me. I looked straight down the lens. I was not speaking to the crowd anymore. I was speaking to Helen in Nebraska. I was speaking to the girls in her STEM club. I was speaking to every single person at home who had ever felt like me. If you have ever been told you are too much, I said, my voice steady, or not enough, if you have ever been told you are too heavy for the room, if you have ever been uninvited, excluded, or erased from the table, hear me now. Do not fight for a seat they will never give you. Do not shrink yourself to fit their correct image. Build your own table. Build your own stage. Build your own laboratory. And when you do, make sure you save extra seats for everyone else who needs a place to sit. I stepped back from the lectern. The show was over. The cello began to play again, a soft, resolved melody. I took Eamon's hand. He smiled, his eyes full of a love that was as solid as the rock beneath my feet. Let's go home. Wife, he said. We turned away from the cameras. We turned away from the crowd. We walked past the fire pits, past the wind lanterns, and toward the small, dark path that led down to the beach. We walked down the rocky steps, our shoes slipping slightly, until our feet finally hit the cold, damp sand of the shoreline. I knew where the cameras were. I knew Eris Thorne was capturing this. The final shot. We stopped at the water's edge, the small waves lapping at our feet. The broadcast feed locked onto a tight shot of our joined hands, my sea glass ring, Eamon's silver and sand band, our fingers interlocked, covered in grains of sand, and in the background, out of focus, the dark ocean, no longer empty, but alive with the hundreds of tiny, brilliant pledge lights, reflecting on the water like a new galaxy. The sound of the cello faded, replaced by the one true sound, the steady, eternal, rhythmic surge of the tide, the swell, the crash, the release, the sound of the ocean, breathing. The climax was resolved. The data was clear. The story was over, at the exact moment I had chosen to build, not to destroy. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We would love to know where you are listening from and hear your thoughts on Lena's journey. So please drop a comment below. Be sure to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear this story.